And so, Ghislaine Maxwell is also a proven liar. I mean, she's facing perjury counts as well. And the victims, they just want their voices to be heard. They've asked to testify in some cases. And so we want to give them a voice. That's all we're trying to do. And we want to get to the bottom of the truth, because the president won't release everything he has, presumably because he's in the files.
Any response from the Republicans on this committee? Do you have any support from them on this?
No response yet. And I think it's very telling. What is this really about in the end? They want to subpoena the Clintons and Comey and many other people they consider political enemies, but they have yet to try to subpoena and invite the women who are victimized to testify. That goes to show that this isn't about protecting women. This is a political tool and a political issue for them, and they're weaponizing it in the Oversight Committee by trying to drag in people who they feel are Democratic opponents that they need to attack.
Let me ask you more about these Oversight Committee subpoenas, because you mentioned several officials were subpoenaed to testify. The DOJ also subpoenaed to provide those Epstein files that haven't been made public. But here are the list of people: former attorneys general, FBI director, former President Bill Clinton, former Secretary of State. Noticeably absent from this list, though, is the former U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Florida, Alex Acosta, who reached that controversial sweetheart deal with Epstein back in 2008. Why not subpoena Acosta?
Because this isn't really about getting to the bottom of the truth. This is about using the Oversight Committee to, one, protect the president, and two, as a political tool to try to attack political opponents. And in this case, the president has been told that he's in the Epstein files. And so they don't want people to come before the committee and tell the truth and talk about the president's involvement. I think the victims may, which is why they're probably going to be hesitant to invite the victims. I think there's other folks who may know more information. But in the end, we're just seeking the truth. And really what this is about is the fact that these women were trafficked. And I've got two daughters, and I'll just tell you that it's a parent's worst nightmare to have their daughters victimized and sexually assaulted and raped. And so they're giving Ghislaine Maxwell a voice, but they're not agreeing to give the victims a voice. I think that's a serious problem here.
Did you and other members of this Oversight Committee suggest we need to subpoena Alex Acosta, and were you turned down?
I haven't had those conversations myself, but I know it's come up, and I'll say that I welcome Alex Acosta to come, and I think he should talk about everything he knows and why he reached certain deals. In the end, I just want people who will come before a committee to tell the truth, and I really want this administration to be more truthful, because we're seeing this administration is weaponizing government, whether it's the DOJ, the FBI, or this committee, to try to go after political opponents and protect the president, because that's what this is really about. It's about protecting the president, not the American people.
Congressman, switching gears, yesterday we learned of several FBI officials being ousted from their roles, including a former acting director of the FBI, Brian Driscoll, who we know was involved in the January 6th investigations and pushed back when he was asked to provide a list of everybody who was involved in those investigations. Another official, a former Marine, had just lost his wife to pancreatic cancer last month. What's your reaction to this purging of top FBI officials?
Again, it's the same pattern. The president's trying to make the DOJ and the FBI his own personal law firm to protect himself and his own interests.
Well, the dinner meeting scheduled for Vice President's residence last night about the Epstein situation didn't happen at the Vice President's residence, thanks to a leak from inside the Trump White House, the Trump administration, that indicated Vice President Vance planned a dinner meeting at his residence last night with White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, the Trump FBI director, the Trump Attorney General, and the Trump Deputy Attorney General, who was Donald Trump's personal criminal defense lawyer, Todd Blanche, who is the only criminal defense lawyer in history to represent a president of the United States in a trial where that person was convicted of crimes by a jury of his peers. NBC News is reporting that no gathering occurred last night at the Vice President's residence, which was the worst possible choice of venue for such a meeting, because it is so easy for the press to just stake out the driveway there to monitor the entrance of the vice president's residence to see who's coming to dinner. NBC News is reporting that a group did meet to discuss the Epstein situation at the White House last night, which is the way that meeting should have been planned in the first place. But it's important to note that even then, even when they kept it indoors at the White House with no one able to watch who was coming and going, someone, at least one person or more, inside the Trump White House, inside the Trump administration, is leaking about these meetings, about the scheduling of these meetings, and about them actually happening. Someone in there working for Donald Trump wants news organizations to know that the Trump White House and Trump cabinet members are desperately trying to figure out how to rewrite history to erase Donald Trump's friendship with Jeffrey Epstein, who said before he died in prison, "I was Donald's closest friend for 10 years. But photographs don't lie. And that is Donald Trump right there, sitting beside Ghislaine Maxwell in that photograph taken right in the middle of Ghislaine Maxwell's years of reign of terror against children who she personally molested, along with Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein wasn't the one luring those children into his home. That was Ghislaine Maxwell's job. And that's what victims testified to under oath in federal court when Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted by a unanimous jury of sex trafficking. Donald Trump's own Justice Department has said Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein had over 1,000 victims, an uncountable number of victims. They don't know how many more over 1,000, how many thousands it might be. Jeffrey Epstein was raping girls on an almost daily basis for decades. And he was doing it when he said he was Donald Trump's closest friend. Today, the White House press corps once again failed to ask Donald Trump about his friendship with Ghislaine Maxwell and why his criminal defense lawyer went to Florida to question Ghislaine Maxwell before granting her a transfer to a prison that one former federal prison official calls a country club that's in Texas, close to Ghislaine Maxwell's family. A minimum security facility which does not allow sex offenders like Ghislaine Maxwell unless the President of the United States wants that particular child rapist who he used to be friends with to be given special treatment, which is what Donald Trump's old friend Ghislaine Maxwell is getting tonight from Donald Trump's Justice Department. The White House press corps got to ask exactly 6.5 questions today. They wasted those questions, of course. One was about tariffs. That, as usual, produced a non-answer. And the other questions were about Vladimir Putin, with the White House press corps foolishly pursuing questions like this. Question: is your deadline still standing for Vladimir Putin to agree to a ceasefire tomorrow, or is that fluid now? To which Donald Trump said, it's going to be up to him. Those are his words. Now, it is not news that Donald Trump does not ever make demands on Vladimir Putin. It is not news that Donald Trump does not have deadlines with Vladimir Putin. It is not news that as far as Donald Trump is concerned, when it comes to Vladimir Putin, quote, it's going to be up to him. That's the way it has always been with Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. And so White House reporters shouldn't be wasting their questions on junk like that. It has always been up to Vladimir Putin. When Donald Trump asked Vladimir Putin publicly during the 2016 presidential campaign to please hack Hillary Clinton's emails, Donald Trump knew it was going to be up to him. It was going to be up to Vladimir Putin. And Vladimir Putin immediately delivered. At an idiotic Trump campaign rally in 2016, Donald Trump said, "Russia, if you're listening," and then publicly begged Russian spies and Russian hackers and Russian government officials and Vladimir Putin to obtain and release Hillary Clinton's emails, and they did. Nothing like that can possibly happen in Russia without Vladimir Putin deciding that it should happen. 12 Russian officials were indicted in the United States for that theft and for their interference in the presidential election, interference that could only have been ordered by Vladimir Putin. And so Donald Trump's real answer about Vladimir Putin every time, no matter what question you're asking, is always going to be, it's going to be up to him. The White House press corps' questions revealed absolutely nothing today. Nothing. But White House reporters did exactly what Donald Trump wanted them to do this time. Exactly. They didn't speak a word about his friends Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Not one reporter brought them up. Today, another victim's lawyer, Robert Glassman, filed a letter concerning the Trump Justice Department's request to unseal the Epstein and Maxwell grand jury testimony. Robert Glassman represents a victim who testified in Ghislaine Maxwell's trial under a pseudonym, as other witnesses did, to protect privacy. That victim, known in the courtroom as Jane, testified that she met Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein while at a summer camp when she was 14 years old. Yes.
The Trump administration doesn't understand the Streisand effect. We've talked about it, right? That the more they try to hide and bury and make secrets and keep secrets about the Epstein stuff, the more people, reasonably so, including MAGAs, start to wonder, my goodness, what are they trying to hide? Why are they being so defensive? Why are they doing so many unprecedented things, seemingly, to cover up the truth? And it goes back to that Streisand. We've talked about this, right? This was a famous thing back in like the 90s, I believe, where paparazzi were taking picture of her house, which, she, maybe you could reasonably not want that, but she like brought them to court and stuff, and then it was all in the media, and then all of a sudden people are like, why is she like being so aggressive to stop people from taking pictures of her home? And then what did that do? Well, it made everybody be like, man, we really want to see the home. It must be really weird or cool, or she must be doing something, and I don't think she was, but she created her own scandal by overreacting. And that's what Trump is doing. He created this, first, by making a campaign promise about it, but two, by constantly using it as a cudgel. And now, only when it was clear that he was in it. This is what happened. In like May, he found out he was in it. And that's why in like June, a couple weeks later, he started to change his tune. And then throughout the last couple months, he's been backtracking hard. So they could, like they said in these videos, they could try to have secret strategy meetings and all of that. At the end of the day, people just want the truth and they're not getting it.